5 years after the divorce, a CEO discovers his ex-wife is now the boss of a Fortune 100 company. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Family, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, we come before you with humble hearts. Please wrap every woman in this family with your divine strength, perfect health, and unbreakable peace. Lift the silent warriors who give love without limits, who hold families together with patience, sacrifice, and grace. Honor them, protect them, and reward them for every tear they hide and every prayer they whisper for others. Let no woman here feel weak, forgotten, or alone. Crown her with dignity, surround her with comfort, and fill her days with light. My beautiful family, this space is built on love, respect, and truth. Stay with me, feel this prayer, and walk with me till the end. Because we are not viewers here, we are one heart, one family. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel smelled like expensive cologne, ambition, and the particular desperation of people trying to seem important. Chris Robinson stood near the marble bar, Scotch sweating in his hand, watching 300 executives perform the elaborate dance of networking. As Vice President of Strategic Development at Robinson and Hayes Financial, he'd attended dozens of these Fortune 100 leadership summits over the past 5 years. They all blurred together into the same tedious performance of power, prestige, and people pretending their jobs meant something beyond quarterly earnings reports. His colleague Derek wandered over with 2 fresh drinks, looking as bored as Chris felt. Another year, another room full of rich people congratulating themselves for being rich. You look absolutely thrilled to be here. My mother insisted I attend, said it's important for the Robinson name to be represented at these things. Chris accepted the offered drink even though he hadn't finished his first. Apparently missing last year's summit was a career-limiting move. How is the Dragon Lady? Still breathing fire about the Henderson deal? She's made it very clear that losing a $20 million client reflects poorly on the family legacy. Chris loosened his tie. Never mind that Henderson was moving their business regardless of what we offered. In my mother's world, there's no such thing as circumstances beyond our control, just personal failure. Derek laughed. That's why I work for a company where my last name isn't on the building. Way less pressure. He scanned the room. So, who are we supposed to be kissing up to tonight? Anyone worth the effort? Before Chris could respond, the room shifted. The change was subtle at first, just a slight decrease in ambient noise, a few heads turning toward the entrance. Then the shift became a wave. Conversations paused mid-sentence. People stopped pretending to look at their phones. The collective attention of 300 powerful executives turned toward the ballroom doors like flowers instinctively following sunlight. A woman walked into the room. Chris's glass slipped from his fingers. He caught it at the last possible second, scotch sloshing over his knuckles and onto his sleeve. His breath caught somewhere between his lungs and throat. His vision tunneled until everything in his peripheral collapsed into blur, and all he could see was her, Tasmin Young, his ex-wife. The woman he'd divorced 5 years ago walked through that ballroom like she owned every square inch of it. She wore a custom-tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Chris's monthly mortgage payment. Her locks were styled in an elaborate updo he'd seen in fashion magazines, the kind that required hours of professional work. Small diamond studs caught the chandelier light. A simple gold watch that Chris recognized from a luxury brand catalog adorned her wrist. But it wasn't the expensive clothes or the jewelry that made everyone in the room turn and stare. It was the way she carried herself, like she'd conquered empires and was casually looking around for new worlds to dominate, like every person in this room full of CEOs and billionaires was, at best, an interesting peer and, at worst, completely irrelevant to her trajectory. She moved with the fluid confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was and exactly what she was worth and had absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. This wasn't the Tasmin Chris remembered. That woman had taken 2 buses to her call center job because she couldn't afford a car. She'd shopped at thrift stores with carefully organized coupons. She'd counted out quarters and dimes for groceries, making mental calculations about what she could afford. She'd been beautiful then too, but in a quieter way. A way that said she was trying to take up as little space as possible in a world that made it clear she didn't belong in rooms like this. This woman commanded space, owned it, made it bend to her presence. Derek whistled low. "Holy shit, who is that?" Chris's voice came out strangled. "Tasmin Young, CEO of TY Global Holdings." "Wait, the Tasmin Young, the one who went from literal food stamps to Fortune 100 in like 5 years?" Derek looked at Chris with sharp new interest. "Hold on. Young was your ex-wife's last name, wasn't it? Is that—" "Yeah," Chris managed. "That's her. Your ex-wife is Tasmin Young, the Tasmin Young, and you let her get away." Derek stared at him like he'd just admitted to burning down an orphanage. "Brother, that might be the biggest fumble in human history." Chris couldn't respond, couldn't think, couldn't process the impossible reality walking across the ballroom floor. A business journalist Chris recognized from Bloomberg practically sprinted to intercept Tasmin, notebook already open, recorder probably running in his pocket. She smiled at him with genuine warmth, shook his hand with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, said something that made him laugh and scribble notes frantically. 3 other executives approached immediately after, forming a small circle around her. She greeted each one by name, asked specific questions about their companies, made references to recent deals and market moves that proved she'd done her homework on everyone in this room. Chris watched her work the crowd like a master conductor leading an orchestra, every gesture precise, every word calculated, every smile deployed with strategic purpose. She was performing, but the performance was so natural, so effortless, that it transcended performance and became something else entirely. She simply was this person now, this titan, this force. The moderator's voice boomed through the sound system, saving Chris from having to continue the conversation with Derek. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please find your seats, we'll be starting our keynote address shortly." People began moving toward the rows of chairs facing the stage. Chris found himself swept along with the crowd, his body moving on autopilot while his brain tried and failed to process what was happening. He ended up in the 5th row, far enough back that he could see without being obvious about staring. Derek settled into the seat next to him, still looking at Chris with a mixture of amusement and pity. "So, just to be clear," Derek said as the lights dimmed, "you were married to the woman who's about to give this keynote, the billionaire CEO, and you divorced her?" "It's complicated. It's really not, man. You either stayed with her or you left. And clearly you left." Derek shook his head. "What the hell were you thinking?" Chris didn't answer because there was no answer that didn't make him sound like the worst kind of coward. The moderator returned to the stage, his voice taking on the reverential tone people used when introducing someone genuinely important. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute privilege to introduce tonight's keynote speaker. At just 29 years old, she has built a billion-dollar empire from absolutely nothing. She rose from poverty to become the 47th ranked company on the Fortune 100 list. Her story is one of determination, innovation, and the kind of vision that reshapes entire industries. Please welcome Ms. Tasmin Young, CEO of TY Global Holdings." The applause was thunderous. People stood, a standing ovation before she'd even said a word. Chris stood with them because remaining seated would have been too obvious, too strange. His hands came together in mechanical claps that he couldn't hear over the roaring in his ears. Tasmin took the stage with the same confidence she'd entered the room. She stood at the podium, waited for the applause to die down, and let the silence stretch just long enough to ensure every eye was on her. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear and strong and carrying to every corner of the room. 5 years ago, I sat in waiting rooms outside investment offices 47 times. 47 different investors listened to my pitch and said no. They told me I was too young, too inexperienced, too urban. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Some were more honest. They said I didn't have the right pedigree, the right background, the right family connections. Her eyes swept the audience. Chris held his breath, terrified and hoping in equal measure that she'd see him, recognize him, acknowledge him. But her gaze passed over him like he was just another face in the crowd, like he was nobody, like he'd never mattered at all. I took those 47 rejections, Tasmin continued, and I built 47 reasons to prove them wrong. Today, TY Global Holdings controls significant market share in sustainable technology, commercial real estate, and renewable energy sectors across 3 continents. We operate in 17 countries. We employ over 4,000 people. Last year, our revenue reached $8.2 billion. The room erupted again. Chris felt Derek nudge him, probably saying something, but Chris couldn't hear anything except the sound of his own heart breaking in real time. Tasmin continued her speech, outlining her business philosophy, her approach to sustainable growth, her vision for the future of technology and commerce. She was brilliant, articulate, commanding. Every person in that room was hanging on her every word, and she knew it. She wielded their attention like a weapon, like a tool, like something she'd earned through blood and sweat and refusing to give up when any reasonable person would have walked away. Chris watched her and understood with brutal clarity. She hadn't just survived him leaving. She'd transcended it. She'd used his abandonment as fuel to build something so massive, so undeniable, that his presence or absence in her life was completely irrelevant to her success. She didn't need him. She'd never needed him, and she'd proven it in the most spectacular way possible. After the speech, after more thunderous applause, after Tasmin was swarmed by executives wanting to shake her hand and exchange business cards and bask in her success, Chris stood frozen in place while the crowd dispersed around him. Derek clapped him on the shoulder. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to go. The networking reception is just starting. Your mom's going to kill you if—" "I don't care." Chris pushed through the crowd toward the exit, needing air, needing space, needing to be anywhere but in this room where his ex-wife had just proven to 300 witnesses that leaving her had been the worst decision of his entire life. He made it to his car in the parking garage before his hands started shaking so badly he couldn't get the key in the ignition. He sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the panic and shame and overwhelming sense that he'd just witnessed his own irrelevance made manifest. His phone buzzed. Text from his mother. "Where are you? You need to network. This is unacceptable." Chris ignored it, pulled out his phone. Typed Tasmin's name into Google with shaking fingers. The results exploded across his screen. Forbes, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Business Insider. Article after article about her impossible rise. He clicked on the Forbes feature, the big profile piece with professional photos and probably 3 months of research behind it. From food stamps to Fortune 100, the Tasmin Young story. He scrolled past the business analysis, past the glowing testimonials from economists and industry leaders, past photos of her cutting ribbons at new facilities and shaking hands with politicians. Then he saw it, a candid photograph from some charity event. Tasmin in an elegant evening gown, looking down at a small boy in a tiny suit. The child was maybe 5 years old, brown skin, tight curls, holding her hand with absolute trust and love. The caption read, "Young with her son Jordan at the Children's Hospital Foundation Gala." The boy had his eyes, Chris's exact eyes. Not similar, identical. The shape, the color, the way the left one creased slightly different when he smiled, a genetic quirk Chris had inherited from his father and his father before him. Chris stared at the photo until his vision blurred. Until the numbers and timeline and brutal mathematics clicked into place in his brain, with the sound of a cell door slamming shut. When he'd signed those divorce papers 5 years ago, Tasmin had been 3 months pregnant. He'd known, she'd told him, and he'd signed anyway. Which meant this boy, this 5-year-old named Jordan, with Chris's eyes and Tasmin's smile, was his son. His son. A child he'd never met, never held, never seen except in this photograph on his phone screen. Chris sat in his car in the parking garage and felt his entire world collapse into a singularity of shame and regret so dense that he couldn't breathe around it. Chapter 2. The fortress she built. Chris didn't sleep. He sat at his desk reading every article about Tasmin Young like studying for an exam that determined his worth as a human being. The Bloomberg investigation was devastating. Young's rise began after a difficult divorce. At 24, 6 months pregnant, she worked 3 jobs simultaneously. Night security at Stellar Office Complex, weekend call center shifts, freelance web development during remaining hours. Former co-workers remember her bringing programming textbooks to her security post, teaching herself advanced coding while pregnant and alone. A grainy photo showed Tasmin in a security uniform, visibly pregnant, at a desk with a programming manual. Timestamp, 2:47 a.m. Chris closed the laptop, stared at himself in the bathroom mirror and saw a monster. While she'd worked 3 jobs at 2:47 a.m., 7 months pregnant, he'd been sleeping comfortably, complaining about his office temperature. Young gave birth at County General Hospital alone, the Wall Street Journal reported. Arrived via rideshare, labored 14 hours without support, left 2 days later with her newborn, taking public transit home. Alone. She'd given birth completely alone. The Fortune article detailed her first business. When her son was 4 months old, Young borrowed $500 from a church program and started Clean Slate Solutions, hiring single mothers needing flexible hours. She worked alongside employees while her infant slept in a bassinet she carried between sites. Within 18 months, 53 employees, $1.8 million revenue. She sold it for $2.3 million, from $500 borrowed dollars to millions. Chris found TechCrunch's coverage of her next move. Young used every dollar to acquire next-gen apps, a failing startup experts called financial suicide. She restructured around sustainability-focused technology, turned it profitable in 11 months, acquired 2 more companies, merged all 3, took the entity public as TY Global Holdings. Current stock price, $219 per share. Her net worth, $1.2 billion. His family's company, built over 4 generations, $800 million. Tasmin alone was worth more. His phone buzzed. Victoria, his wife. Where have you been for 2 days? I saw Tasmin at the summit. Silence. The keynote speaker? Yeah, she has a son, 5 years old. Jordan. He's mine. The silence stretched forever. What? When I divorced her, she was 3 months pregnant. I knew, and I signed anyway. Never followed up, never sent money, never made contact. The words spilled out. I abandoned her pregnant and poor. She gave birth alone. Worked 3 jobs with a newborn. Built a billion-dollar company. I have a son I've never met. Victoria arrived 20 minutes later. Looked at the photos on his screen. Saw Jordan with Chris's eyes. She poured wine. You told me your divorce was mutual. I lied. What actually happened? He told her everything. His mother's ultimatum. The choice. The words he'd said. I can't build my future carrying your poverty on my back. Victoria set down her glass carefully. You said that to a pregnant woman? Yes. And never checked on her after? No. Victoria stood, walked to the window. I'm filing for divorce. Okay. I knew I was the acceptable choice. Good family, right pedigree, white enough for your mother. But I thought we could build something real. I was wrong. She grabbed her purse. You love her. You've been in love with her for 5 years. I won't watch you obsess over a family you threw away. She left. Chris spent the night trying to reach Tasmin. Everything failed. Email bounced, phone calls refused, LinkedIn ignored. He showed up at TY Global. Security stopped him immediately. Name and appointment? Chris Robinson. No appointment, but I need to see Ms. Young. It's personal. Without an appointment, you need to leave. We were married. I'm her son's father. 2 more guards appeared. Exit now, or we remove you. He tried sending gifts to Jordan's school, educational books, telescope, model kits. 3 days later, everything returned. Note attached. Return to sender. My son doesn't accept gifts from strangers. Contact his school again, and I'll file a restraining order. You made your choice. Live with it. T. Young. Strangers. Chris understood finally. Tasmin had built a fortress with walls so high he couldn't breach them. She'd made herself unreachable with the same strategic brilliance she used building her empire. The only way in was force, the legal system, making her relive his abandonment in courtrooms. It would make her hate him more, but a child was involved. Chris had abandoned him once. He wouldn't do it again. He hired a lawyer, knowing every step would hurt her, knowing he deserved her hatred, knowing he had no right, but doing it anyway. Chapter 3. The Price of Admission. Jennifer Park's law office occupied the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered views of the financial district. She was 47 years old, sharp as broken glass, and known for handling the kind of family law cases that made other lawyers uncomfortable. Her walls were covered with framed degrees from Harvard Law and commendations from family court judges. She sat behind a desk made of dark wood that probably cost more than Chris's car. "Mr. Robinson," she said after reviewing the divorce decree he'd brought, "let me make sure I understand the situation. You signed these papers knowing your wife was 3 months pregnant?" "Yes." "And you never followed up? Never asked about the pregnancy outcome? Never sent financial support? Never attempted contact?" "No, I didn't." Jennifer set down the papers with careful precision, looked at Chris with an expression that could freeze water. "Then legally speaking, Mr. Robinson, you abandoned your child. That's going to be the foundation of Ms. Young's defense, and it's a very strong foundation. I didn't know he was born. I didn't know his name, or you knew she was pregnant. You chose not to ask questions. Courts don't reward willful ignorance." Jennifer leaned back in her chair. "But here's the legal reality. You are presumably the biological father. If you file for paternity establishment and visitation rights, the court will order DNA testing. When that test confirms paternity, they'll grant you some level of access, probably supervised initially given the circumstances. How long will this take? Months. She has significant resources to fight you. Excellent legal counsel, deep pockets for a prolonged battle. And Mr. Robinson?" Jennifer's expression was deadly serious. "You need to understand what you're doing here. You're forcing your way into a child's life after 5 years of complete absence. You're making his mother relive the trauma of your abandonment through legal proceedings. You're disrupting a stable home environment. She's going to fight you with everything she has." "I don't have a choice." "Everyone has choices, Mr. Robinson. You had one 5 years ago. Now you're living with the consequences of that choice while trying to force new choices onto people who've built their lives without you." "So you won't take my case?" "I didn't say that. I take difficult cases. This is certainly difficult." Jennifer pulled out a legal pad. "But I need you to be realistic about what we're asking for here. We're not going to get unsupervised custody immediately. We probably won't get weekends for months. The court will start with supervised visitation and gradually increase access based on your consistency and the child's comfort level. This is a marathon, not a sprint." "I understand." "Do you? Because the moment you file these papers, you're declaring war on a woman who built a billion-dollar company out of spite for people who underestimated her. You're going to be her new project. She's going to make this as difficult as legally possible. I know, I deserve that. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what your son needs. And right now, what he needs is stability. You're about to disrupt that stability. Make sure you're ready for the responsibility that comes with it." Chris filed the paperwork anyway. Tasmin's response came through her legal team exactly 2 weeks later. Her lawyers worked for Whitman and Associates, one of the most prestigious family law firms in the state. The response was 38 pages long. "Ms. Young does not contest biological paternity," the document stated in coldly professional language. However, she vigorously opposes unsupervised visitation given Mr. Robinson's 5-year absence from the minor child's life, his demonstrated pattern of abandonment when circumstances become inconvenient, his failure to provide any financial support, his failure to make any attempt at contact, and his overall lack of commitment to parenting responsibilities. Ms. Young requests court-ordered supervised visitation only, with frequency and duration to be determined by the court based on the child's best interests and Mr. Robinson's demonstrated ability to maintain consistent involvement. The word abandonment appeared 8 times in the legal filing. Each instance felt like a knife between Chris's ribs. The court date was set for 5 weeks out. Chris used that time to make decisions that shocked everyone who knew him. He quit Robinson and Hayes Financial. His resignation email was 2 sentences long. "Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position as VP of Strategic Development. Thank you for the opportunity." His mother called him 42 times in the first day. He finally answered on the 43rd call. "What do you think you're doing?" Her voice could have cut steel. "I'm walking away from a job I hate at a company I never wanted to work for in the first place." "You're destroying your inheritance over a woman who won't even speak to you?" "I'm destroying an inheritance that was never mine." "You built this company, Mom. You and grandfather and great-grandfather. It's yours, not mine. I just showed up because I was born with the right last name." "Christopher, be reasonable. This is about that woman, isn't it? The one from the projects? Her name is Tasmin, and she's worth more than this entire family because she actually built something instead of just inheriting it." Chris's voice was steady. "She did it while raising my son. Alone. While I was sitting in my comfortable office complaining about my comfortable problems. If you walk away from this company..." "I already did. I sent my resignation 10 minutes before calling you back." "Then you get nothing. No severance package, no trust fund access, no safety net of any kind." "Perfect. I don't want anything I didn't earn myself." "You're making a mistake. I made my mistake 5 years ago. This is me trying to fix it." He hung up on his mother for the first time in his entire life. Got a job as senior financial consultant at a mid-sized firm called Sterling Analytics. The salary was $120,000 per year. A third of what he'd been making at Robinson and Hayes. He moved out of his expensive condo and into a smaller apartment in a normal neighborhood where people worked real jobs and didn't care about family names or social pedigrees. The apartment had 2 bedrooms because he wanted Jordan to have his own space when he was allowed to visit, if he was ever allowed to visit. For the first time in 32 years, Chris had to create a budget. Had to cook his own meals instead of eating out or ordering delivery, had to take the train instead of calling car services, had to shop at regular grocery stores instead of having everything delivered from specialty markets. It felt like waking up from a 30-year coma. The court hearing was brief and procedural. Chris arrived 30 minutes early, wearing his best suit, palms sweating despite the building's air conditioning. Tasmin arrived exactly 1 minute before the hearing was scheduled to start. She had 2 lawyers with her. Both wore suits that probably cost more than Chris's entire wardrobe. Tasmin herself wore grey, her hair pulled back severely, her face absolutely neutral. She didn't look at Chris, didn't acknowledge his existence, just sat at the plaintiff's table and spoke quietly to her attorneys. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Eleanor Hartley. She had a reputation for being fair, but absolutely no nonsense when it came to family law. "Mr. Robinson," Judge Hartley said after reviewing the documentation, "you're requesting paternity establishment and visitation rights." "Yes, Your Honor." "And Ms. Young, you're not contesting paternity, but you oppose unsupervised visitation." Tasman's lead attorney stood. That's correct, Your Honor. Mr. Robinson has been entirely absent from the minor child's life since before birth. He knew of the pregnancy and chose not to maintain contact or provide support. We believe supervised visitation is appropriate until Mr. Robinson can demonstrate sustained, consistent commitment to his parental responsibilities. Mr. Robinson, the judge said, why should this court grant you access to a child you've ignored for 5 years? Chris stood. I have no good excuse, Your Honor. I made a terrible choice when I signed those divorce papers. I abandoned my responsibility. I deserve Ms. Young's anger and mistrust. But that child deserves to know his father. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to do better going forward. I'm asking for the chance to prove I've changed. Judge Hartley studied him for a long moment. I'm ordering DNA testing to establish paternity. Assuming the test confirms Mr. Robinson as the biological father, I'm granting supervised visitation, 1 hour per week at an approved facility. We'll reassess in 6 months based on Mr. Robinson's consistency, the child's adjustment, and both parties' ability to co-parent effectively. Thank you, Your Honor, Chris said. Don't thank me, Mr. Robinson. Thank Ms. Young for not fighting this harder than she legally could have. Based on your history, she'd be well within her rights to make this significantly more difficult. Judge Hartley looked at Tasman. Ms. Young, I appreciate your willingness to work within the system rather than creating obstacles. Tasman stood. I'm not doing this for Mr. Robinson, Your Honor. I'm doing it because my son has the right to know his biological father, even if that father didn't think my son was worth staying for. But my son's emotional safety is my priority. If Mr. Robinson proves inconsistent or harmful, I'll be back in this courtroom asking for protections. Understood and noted. Judge Hartley banged her gavel. We'll reconvene after DNA results and initial visitation reports. Court adjourned. In the hallway afterward, Chris tried to approach Tasman. Taz? Her lead attorney, a man named Lawrence Wright, stepped between them immediately. Ms. Young has no interest in communicating with you outside of legal proceedings and required co-parenting logistics. I just want to apologize. Tasman finally looked at Chris. Her eyes were completely empty, not angry, not hurt, just void of any emotion related to him whatsoever. You'll get your DNA test, she said in a voice as cold as ice. You'll get your supervised hour with my son, but understand something, Chris. I'm doing this because Jordan has the legal right to know his biological father. Not because you deserve forgiveness, not because I believe you've changed, not because I think you're suddenly going to become Father of the Year. I'm doing this for him, only him. Don't confuse my son's rights with your redemption fantasy. She walked away down the courthouse hallway, her lawyers flanking her like guards. Lawrence Wright handed Chris a business card. All communication regarding the minor child goes through me. No direct contact with Ms. Young except during supervised visitation exchanges. No contact with the child outside of approved visits. No attempts to reach Ms. Young through her business or personal life. Everything goes through official channels. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. You'll receive notice about DNA testing within 72 hours. Test results take approximately 2 weeks. Supervised visitation will begin 1 week after results are confirmed. Don't be late. Don't miss visits. Don't give Ms. Young any reason to come back to court asking for reduced access. Chris stood alone in the courthouse hallway and understood the full scope of what he'd done. Tasman wasn't just angry. She wasn't just hurt. She was completely indifferent to his existence, except as an unfortunate legal obligation related to her son. She'd built walls so high that Chris couldn't even see the top. The only question now was whether he could prove himself worthy of her son. Because proving himself worthy of her, that ship had sailed 5 years ago and burned on the horizon. Chapter 4. The Boy Who Doesn't Need Him. The supervised visitation facility occupied the 2nd floor of a converted office building in a commercial district. The space had clearly been decorated by someone trying to make court-ordered visits feel less traumatic. beige walls with cheerful murals of animals and rainbows, commercial carpet in primary colors, toy bins organized by age group, a small kitchen area, a woman's bathroom and a men's bathroom, cameras in every corner because trust was a luxury nobody in this building could afford. Ruth Williams sat at a desk in the corner with a clipboard and official observation forms. She was in her 50s, had been doing supervised visitation monitoring for 12 years, and had the calm, professional demeanor of someone who'd seen every possible family dynamic and no longer found any of them surprising. Chris arrived 35 minutes early, sat in his car in the parking lot, practicing what he'd say to a 5-year-old boy he'd abandoned before birth. How do you explain 5 years of absence? How do you make that understandable to a child? What words could possibly bridge that gap? At exactly 3 o'clock, a black Mercedes SUV pulled into the parking lot. Chris recognized it from the charity gala photos. It was probably worth more than he'd make in the next 3 years at his new job. Tasmin stepped out first. She was wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. No suit, no jewelry, except small earrings. Her hair was in a casual ponytail. She looked more like the woman Chris had married than the billionaire CEO from the summit. But the way she moved, the confidence in her posture, that was all new. She opened the rear door. A small boy climbed out wearing jeans and a t-shirt with a detailed illustration of the Mars rover on it. He had a backpack shaped like an astronaut helmet. Jordan. Chris's throat closed. His hand started shaking. He gripped the steering wheel to steady them. The boy was small for 5 but sturdy. He had Chris's eyes, Tasmin's nose and mouth, skin that was a perfect blend of both parents. His hair was in tight curls that Tasmin had clearly spent time on that morning. He moved with the careful confidence of a child who'd been taught to be aware of his surroundings, but not afraid of them. Jordan said something Chris couldn't hear from this distance. Tasmin knelt down to his level, spoke to him seriously, kissed his forehead. He nodded with the solemnity of someone receiving important instructions. She took his hand, and they walked toward the building together. Chris forced himself out of the car on legs that didn't want to support his weight. Inside the facility, Ruth greeted them with professional warmth. Ms. Young, Mr. Robinson, welcome. Jordan, hi, sweetheart. How are you today? Jordan pressed close to his mother's leg. I'm good, thank you. Jordan has excellent manners, Ruth said, making a note on her clipboard. That's wonderful. Are you ready for your visit today? Jordan looked up at Tasmin. She knelt down again, bringing herself to his eye level. Remember what we talked about this morning? Tasmin's voice was gentle but clear. He's my biological father, but I can call him Chris if that feels more comfortable. Right, and what else? If I feel scared or uncomfortable at any time, I can ask to stop and you'll come get me right away. No matter what, exactly. And I'll be right in the waiting room the whole time. 60 minutes. You're completely safe, baby. Jordan hugged her. She held him tight, kissed the top of his head, then stood up. She looked at Ruth, not at Chris. 1 hour, not a minute more. I'll be right outside. She left without acknowledging Chris's existence. Jordan watched the door close behind his mother, tracking her until she was completely out of sight. Then he turned to look at Chris with careful, assessing eyes that were far too cautious for a 5-year-old. Hi, Jordan said. Chris's voice came out rough and unsteady. Hi, Jordan, I'm Chris. I know. Mom showed me your picture. She explained who you are. Ruth gestured toward the play area with its foam mats and organized toys. Why don't you two spend some time together? Jordan, you can show Chris your favorite things here. Jordan walked to the toy bins with the air of someone who'd been carefully prepared for this interaction. He pulled out an elaborate space shuttle model with multiple components. This is Discovery. It completed 39 missions before NASA retired it in 2011. It was one of the most successful orbiters in the space shuttle program. That's really impressive. You know a lot about space. It's my special interest. Mom says everyone should have something they're really interested in and learn everything about it. Jordan sat on the foam mat and began carefully arranging the shuttle components. I want to study aerospace engineering when I grow up, or maybe astrophysics. I haven't decided yet. 5 years old and already planning his future career in specific terms. Those both sound like great choices. Your mom's right about having interests. What else are you interested in? Reading, math, building things with my hands. Mom got me a robotics kit for my birthday and I built 17 different robots. He looked up at Chris with those familiar eyes. Do you have interests? I like reading too, and I used to enjoy building model airplanes when I was younger. Why did you stop? The question was so direct, it took Chris's breath away. I guess I got busy with work and forgot about the things I actually enjoyed. That's sad. Mom says you should never be so busy that you forget to do things that make you happy. They played in comfortable silence for a while. Jordan explained the shuttle's systems in remarkable detail for someone his age. Heat shields and their thermal protection properties, the cargo bay and its capacity specifications, crew compartments and life support systems. He knew mission dates, commander names, scientific experiments conducted in orbit. How do you know all this? Chris asked, genuinely amazed. I read a lot. Mom takes me to the library every Saturday morning before her meetings and I can get any books I want. She says reading is how you travel to places you've never been and learn things nobody can teach you. Jordan adjusted a small cargo door on his model. And we watch documentaries together sometimes at night before bed. Mom falls asleep during them because she works so hard, but I finish them. Chris's chest ached. Tasmin was raising this brilliant, curious, articulate child while running a Fortune 100 company, while working herself to exhaustion, while doing everything alone. Your mom sounds amazing. She is. She's the most important person in the whole world. Jordan said it with absolute certainty. She takes care of me and works really hard, and still has time to help with my homework and read to me and answer all my questions, even when she's really tired. They played for another 20 minutes. Jordan talked about school, his best friend Elijah, who wanted to be a paleontologist, his science teacher Mr. Harrison, who was teaching them about ecosystems. Every story featured Tasmin. She was the sun around which Jordan's entire world orbited. Jordan, Chris said carefully, I know this must be really strange. Meeting me. Mom explained it. She said sometimes adults make decisions that hurt people, and even when they're really sorry later, they can't make the hurt go away. But people can try to do better in the future. Your mom is very wise. I know. Everyone says that about her. Jordan lined up his space shuttles in chronological order by maiden voyage date. She also said you knew about me before I was born, but you chose not to be part of my life. The brutal honesty was devastating. That's true. And it was the worst choice I've ever made. Why did you choose that? Because I was scared. I let other people tell me what to do instead of thinking for myself and being brave. Jordan processed this with visible concentration. Mom says being scared is okay because everyone gets scared. But she says you can't let fear make your important decisions. You have to make decisions based on what's right. Your mom is completely right about that. So you made a wrong decision because you were scared? Yes, and I'm sorry, I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm really, really sorry. Jordan nodded slowly. Do you have other kids? Like, did you have a different family? No, just you. You're my only child. Oh. He went back to his shuttles, adjusting them with careful precision. So you weren't busy with other kids. You just didn't want to be with me and Mom. The simplicity of it was crushing. It wasn't about wanting. I was selfish and scared and wrong. I thought I was making a smart choice, but I was actually making the most stupid, cowardly choice possible. Jordan considered this for a long moment. Okay, just okay. No forgiveness, no anger, just factual acknowledgement of information received. They played for the rest of the hour. Jordan showed Chris drawings he'd made of different galaxies, explained the concept of orbital mechanics using his toys, talked about a book he was reading about the history of space exploration. He was brilliant and curious and completely heartbreakingly self-sufficient. He didn't need Chris. Tasmin had made sure of that. Near the end of the hour, the door opened. Tasmin entered at exactly 4 o'clock, not a minute early, not a minute late. Jordan's entire face transformed. "Mom!" He ran to her. She caught him, picked him up even though he was definitely getting too big for that, held him tight. "Hey, baby, how was it?" "It was okay. We talked about space shuttles and orbital mechanics." "Yeah? That's good. Did you feel safe the whole time?" "Yeah. Ruth was here and Chris was nice. He doesn't know as much about space as me, though." Tasmin's eyes flicked to Chris for a microsecond. Something passed across her face too quickly to read. "We'll see you next week, Jordan," Ruth said, making final notes on her observation form. Jordan waved vaguely in Chris's direction. "Bye, Chris." Not bye, Dad. Not see you later, Father. Just Chris, like he was a teacher or a coach or the librarian, someone peripheral to his actual life. Tasmin set Jordan down, took his hand, started to leave. "Taz," Chris said quietly. She paused, didn't turn around, didn't look at him. "Thank you for this, for giving me the chance to... I'm not doing this for you." Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. "Don't confuse what my son needs with what you want. This isn't about your redemption. It's about his right to know his biological father." They left. Chris sat in the visitation facility for 20 minutes after they were gone. Ruth finished her paperwork, then looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. "You did fine for a first visit, Mr. Robinson. Most parents are much more nervous." "Did he seem okay? Comfortable?" "He seemed extremely well prepared. His mother has clearly had extensive conversations with him about boundaries, safety, and his right to stop the visit at any time." "That's good parenting. He's secure in knowing he has control over the situation." "She's an incredible mother. She must be to raise a child that well adjusted after the circumstances you described in court." Ruth handed Chris a schedule. "Same time next week. Consistency is crucial. Don't miss visits. Don't be late. That's how you build trust with a child who has no reason to trust you." Chris drove home to his small apartment and sat in the dark for hours. He'd met his son, and his son didn't need him at all. Tasmin had built a complete world, a complete life, where Chris's absence was barely relevant. Jordan was happy, healthy, brilliant, secure, loved completely. Everything a child should be. Everything Chris had contributed exactly nothing toward creating. The fortress Tasmin had built wasn't just around herself, it was around their son too. And Chris had no idea how to get inside, or if he even deserved to try. Chapter 5. The slow build of something. Week 2 arrived with impossible weight. Chris spent days between visits researching space exploration, orbital mechanics, NASA history. If Jordan loved space, Chris would learn everything. He showed up early with a book he'd hunted at 6 stores. Jordan's eyes went wide. "The new Perseverance rover book. Mom said it's sold out everywhere." Called 14 bookstores, found the last copy in Riverside. They read together. Jordan correcting pronunciations, explaining concepts with confidence. At the hour's end, he hugged the book to his chest. "Can I keep this?" "Of course, it's yours." "Thank you." A pause. "Chris." Still not Dad, but his name without week 1's caution. Progress in millimeters. Week 3. Jordan brought a drawing from school. Detailed solar system with accurate proportional spacing. "My teacher said it was the best in class. I used measurements from your book." "It's incredible, Jordan. You're really talented." "Mom says talent is interest plus practice. Anyone can get good if they care enough." Week 5 brought a shift. Jordan mentioned his science fair project while building with blocks. I'm making a solar system with working orbits, motors that make planets rotate at right speeds. It's really complicated. He looked up carefully. Mom's helping, but she's so busy, she falls asleep at the table while we work. I can tell she's exhausted. Chris's chest ached. What if I helped? If your mom approves and you want me to? Jordan's face brightened. Really? You'd do that? Chris asked through Ruth. Expected rejection. 3 days later, Ms. Young approves Mr. Robinson providing materials and assistance for Jordan's project. Materials delivered through facility only. No contact outside, approved visits. Chris bought everything and more. Professional motors, quality materials, reference books, precision tools, proper calculator. When he presented everything, Jordan threw his arms around Chris's waist. First real hug. Chris worked to keep steady. You're welcome, buddy. Can't wait to see what you build. Week 8. Jordan showed birthday party photos on his tablet. Mom rented the entire planetarium. We used the big telescope and I saw Saturn's rings myself. He scrolled excitedly. We had a Milky Way cake with edible stars. Mom gave me a real telescope for my room. I can see 3 of Jupiter's moons. That sounds amazing. It was the best birthday ever. I wished you were there, but Mom said not yet. She said maybe someday if you're consistent. That's her important word. Consistent means doing what you say every time, not just when it's easy. Your mom is right. That is important. Are you going to be consistent? The directness was refreshing and terrifying. I'm going to try my hardest. I know I wasn't before, but I'm trying to be different now. Okay. Mom says trying is how you get better. You try and fail and try again. Week 12 brought depth. Jordan asked while organizing spacecraft, Were you married to my mom? Yes. Long time ago. What happened? Chris chose words carefully. I made a choice to leave. Wrong choice. I hurt your mom badly. She doesn't talk about you much. Sometimes Auntie Keisha asks if Mom's dating and Mom says she's too busy. But I think she's lonely. The observation was startling. What makes you think that? At night I hear her crying. She thinks I don't hear, but I do. Once I heard her tell Auntie Keisha being strong all the time makes you tired. And Auntie Keisha said Mom works too much to avoid feeling sad, and Mom got really quiet. She does that when something's true, but she doesn't want to talk about it. Chris felt his heart squeezed. Your mom is probably the strongest person I've known. I know, but strong people still get sad. She told me that when I fell off my bike and tried not to cry, said being strong means feeling things and doing what you need to anyway. 5 years old, understanding emotional intelligence better than most adults. Week 18 changed everything. Jordan ran in. Dad, I got first place at the science fair. The word stopped time. Dad, not Chris. Dad. Jordan kept talking, too excited to notice. All the judges loved it. I told them you helped with materials. My teacher wants to meet you. Chris's vision blurred. That's incredible. I'm so proud. Can you come to the school showcase, please? Mom said she'd ask you. If your mom says okay, I'll absolutely be there. That evening, Chris saw Tasmin in the parking lot after pickup. She sat in her Mercedes, head in hands, exhausted beyond reason. He knocked gently. She looked up, eyes red, rolled down the window slowly. What? Are you okay? I'm fine. Jordan mentioned you work really late, through dinner sometimes. Her jaw tightened. Are you monitoring our conversations? No. He's worried. Says you fall asleep at the table. He hears you crying at night. Tasmin's expression cracked briefly before she rebuilt walls. I'm handling it. I know. You handle everything, but maybe you don't have to handle everything alone anymore. I don't need your help. I've managed 5 years without you. I'm just saying you don't have to keep proving you can do it alone. You say that now. Everyone does. Then things get hard and they leave. You taught me that lesson very well. She rolled up the window, drove away. But he'd seen something beyond anger. Loneliness, bone-deep loneliness from carrying everything alone so long she'd forgotten what partnership felt like. Week 30. Ruth noted, child has integrated paternal relationship, uses dad naturally, shows appropriate affection, relationship healthy and stable, recommend unsupervised visitation. The court granted it. Chris could now take Jordan for full days, weekends, overnight visits. Jordan was thrilled. Can I see your apartment? Have sleepovers? If your mom says okay. Jordan ran to Tasmin when she arrived. Mom, the judge said Dad can take me on weekends. Can I go? Please. Tasmin looked at Chris. Expression complicated. Fear, resignation, maybe hope. We'll try one weekend. That night, Chris got a text from unknown number. This is Tasmin, co-parenting logistics. Jordan visits Saturday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. He needs lunch, snack, no junk food, screen time limited, quiet time after lunch. Don't make me regret trusting you. Chris replied, I won't let you down. I promise. 3 dots, disappeared, appeared. Finally, don't make promises, just show up. That was the test. Not grand gestures or perfect words, just showing up. Every single time, even when hard. Especially when hard. Chapter 6. The Weekend That Builds Trust. Chris cleaned his apartment obsessively before Jordan's first unsupervised visit. He'd converted the second bedroom into Jordan's space over the past month, working on it piece by piece between visits, wanting it to be perfect. Space-themed bedding featuring detailed photographs from the Hubble telescope. Glow-in-the-dark stars arranged on the ceiling in actual constellation patterns he'd researched and plotted. Bookshelves filled with age-appropriate science books, fiction from authors Tasmin had mentioned Jordan liked, graphic novels about space exploration, a proper desk for homework, posters of famous astronauts and the Mars rovers on the walls, a real telescope by the window, not as powerful as the one Tasmin had bought him, but respectable, a comfortable reading chair in the corner. When Jordan walked in carrying his overnight bag decorated with planet stickers, his mouth fell open completely. This is all for me. Just for me. All yours. Whenever you're here, this is your room, your space. Jordan explored every corner, touching everything with careful reverence like he was in a sacred place. He opened every drawer, examined every book, tested the telescope, traced the constellation patterns on the ceiling with his finger. Mom's gonna love this. Can we video call her? I want to show her everything. Let's get you settled first, then we can call her. They spent the morning at the Science Museum. Jordan asked approximately 900 questions and remembered every single answer with perfect clarity. They had lunch at a small cafe where Jordan carefully read the menu and asked about ingredients because Tasmin had clearly taught him to be mindful about what he ate. Mom says we need protein and vegetables every day, and sugar is okay sometimes, but not all the time. Did you get vegetables for dinner? I got broccoli and carrots. I remembered you said those were your favorites. Good. Those have the most nutrients. 5 years old and already thinking about nutrition. They cooked dinner together in Chris's small kitchen. Jordan stood on a step stool at the counter, carefully measuring ingredients while Chris supervised and tried not to hover. Chicken stir-fry with vegetables and rice. Jordan set the table without being asked, folding napkins with precision. After dinner, they built an elaborate Lego space station together. Jordan narrated the entire construction process, explaining how the International Space Station actually worked, comparing his Lego version to the real thing, discussing the challenges of long-term space habitation. At 8 o'clock, Jordan asked to video call Tasmin. She answered on the first ring, probably been staring at her phone waiting. Hey baby, how's everything going? Mom, you have to see my room at Dad's place. It has real constellation patterns on the ceiling and a telescope and all these books. Jordan flipped the camera around to show her, narrating every detail with infectious enthusiasm. Chris couldn't see Tasmin's expression, but he heard the pause in her voice, the slight catch that suggested emotion she was working to control. "That looks wonderful, Jordan. Dad put a lot of thought into that." "He did. And we went to the Science Museum and had lunch and cooked dinner together, and I only measured ingredients a little bit wrong once." "I'm really glad you're having fun, baby. Did you brush your teeth after dinner?" "Not yet." "Go do that now. I'll wait." Jordan ran to the bathroom. Chris picked up the phone, saw Tasmin's face for the first time in weeks. She looked tired but beautiful. Her hair was down, no makeup, wearing a sweatshirt. More like the woman he'd married than the CEO from the summit. "The room looks nice," she said quietly, not quite meeting his eyes through the screen. "You put a lot of work into it." "I wanted him to feel like he has a real home here, not just a place he visits." "He does, I can tell." Her voice was soft. "He was nervous about the overnight. Kept asking me what if he gets homesick or what if he needs me, but he looks happy." "He's an incredible kid, Taz. You've done an amazing job with him." "We're doing an amazing job. Both of us now." She said it like it hurt to acknowledge, but she was doing it anyway. "Thank you for making him feel safe." Jordan returned, teeth brushed and flossed. They talked for a few more minutes before Tasmin said she had to go prepare for an early meeting. "I love you so much, baby. Sleep good. Dad will take care of you." "I love you too, Mom. Don't work too late." After the call, Chris and Jordan read 2 chapters from a book about the Apollo missions. Jordan asked detailed questions about the technology, the astronauts, the scientific objectives. When his eyes started closing, Chris carried him to his new room, tucked him into the space-themed bedding. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy? I'm really glad you're here now. Even though you weren't before, I'm glad you're here now." Chris's throat closed. "Me too, Jordan. Me too. Do you think Mom is lonely?" The question came out of nowhere. "Why do you ask?" "Because she works so much. And she doesn't have anyone except me and Auntie Keisha and her work friends. But they're not the same as having a partner. That's what Auntie Keisha says. She says Mom deserves to have a partner who appreciates her. Your mom deserves everything good in the world. Do you think you'll ever be her partner again? Like, together?" "I don't know, buddy. That's up to your mom. I hurt her really badly. She might never forgive me. And that would be fair. But do you want to?" "Yes. More than anything." Jordan processed this with his characteristic seriousness. "Then you should probably tell her. Mom says communication is really important. She says you can't expect people to know what you're thinking if you don't tell them." "Your mom is very wise about that. She's wise about everything." Chris smiled. "Yeah, she is." The weekends became routine. Jordan came every Saturday and Sunday. They developed rituals. Saturday morning science museum, Saturday afternoon cooking together, Sunday morning pancakes with way too much syrup, Sunday afternoon homework and reading. Chris learned his son's mind in these weekends, how Jordan thought in systems and patterns, how he needed time to process emotional information but could recall factual information instantly. How he was brave about trying new things, but needed reassurance that it was okay to fail. How he was endlessly curious, but also needed quiet time to recharge. Month 3 of unsupervised visits. Jordan mentioned his school was having a father-son science presentation day. It's where all the dads come to school and the kids show their projects and explain the science. "Can you come? Please?" "Mom said she'd take me if you couldn't, but it's specifically supposed to be fathers, and I really want you there." Chris's chest swelled with something that might have been pride or joy or overwhelming gratitude. "I'll be there, I promise." He showed up in jeans and a plain shirt, feeling completely out of place among fathers in expensive casual wear from brands Chris couldn't afford anymore. But Jordan didn't care about any of that. "That's my dad," Jordan announced to anyone who'd listen, pulling Chris toward his display with unself-conscious pride. "He helped me with my orbital mechanics project." Chris met other fathers, made small talk that felt awkward but necessary. One man, a friendly guy named Omar Jenkins with an easy smile, asked which kid was Chris's. "Jordan, the solar system with working orbits." "Oh yeah, Brandon talks about him all the time, says Jordan's the smartest kid in their whole grade. Kid's definitely going places. He gets his intelligence from his mother. She here too?" "No, we're divorced, co-parenting situation." "That's rough, man. But good on you for showing up. My brother got divorced 2 years ago and he barely sees his kids now. Says it's too complicated with his ex, too much drama." Omar shook his head. "Kids remember who shows up, you know. They remember who makes the effort." After the event, Jordan wanted ice cream. They sat on a park bench eating chocolate cones, watching other families, the late afternoon sun warm on their faces. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I told Elijah you come to everything now. School stuff, science presentations, everything. He said his dad promises to come but then doesn't show up. Says something always comes up with work or his new girlfriend or something." Jordan looked up at Chris with absolute trust. "I told him you're different, that you keep your promises." The weight of that trust was crushing and beautiful at the same time. "I'll always keep my promises to you, Jordan. Always. Mum says people who keep their promises even when it's hard are the most important kind of people. Your mum is right about that." They sat in comfortable silence, eating ice cream, and Chris understood that this was what mattered. Not grand romantic gestures or perfect moments. Just being there. Consistently, showing up even when it was hard, proving through actions, not words, that he'd changed. Building trust one kept promise at a time. Chapter 7, The Dangerous Ground of Hope. Month 6 of unsupervised visitation. The court reviewed their arrangement again. Judge Hartley looked genuinely pleased as she reviewed Ruth's reports and the documentation from Jordan's school. "Mr. Robinson has maintained perfect consistency. Every scheduled visit always on time, positive reports from the child's teacher indicating emotional stability and happiness. Jordan's school counselor notes that he talks about both parents frequently and positively. This is textbook successful co-parenting." The judge looked at both Chris and Tasmin. "Do either of you have concerns about the current arrangement?" Tasmin's lawyer stood. "My client is satisfied with current arrangements and requests they continue as established." Mr. Robinson: "I'm grateful for the time I have with Jordan, Your Honor. Whatever Ms. Young is comfortable with." Judge Hartley nodded approvingly. "I'm expanding visitation to include overnight stays. Mr. Robinson, you may now have Jordan for full weekends, Friday after school through Sunday evening. We'll review again in 3 months to discuss holiday arrangements and extended summer visitation." In the courthouse hallway afterward, Chris approached Tasmin. This time she didn't immediately walk away. "He talks about you constantly," Tasmin said quietly, looking at something past Chris's shoulder rather than at his face. "Dad said this. Dad thinks that. Dad promised we'd do this. His whole world used to be just me and our routines. Now you're integrated into it too. How does that make you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, angry at myself for being relieved, grateful in a way that makes me furious." She finally looked at him directly. "You're good with him, better than I expected." That bar was pretty low. It was non-existent. And yet you've cleared it consistently for 6 months. That's—" she searched for words. "That's significant. Jordan mentioned you've been traveling a lot for work. Big acquisition deals. How did you—" She stopped. "He told you. He talks about you just as much as he apparently talks about me. He's worried. Says you work through dinner, fall asleep at your desk, seem tired all the time." Tasmin's jaw tightened. I'm managing a Fortune 100 company. Of course I'm tired. I'm not criticizing, I'm here. If you need backup, if you need someone to handle pickup when you're traveling or help with homework when you're in meetings, that's what co-parents do. I've been doing it alone for 5 years. I'm used to managing alone. I know, but maybe you don't have to anymore. Maybe that's what these 6 months have been proving. Tasmin studied him with an expression Chris couldn't read. Suspicion mixed with something that might have been cautious hope. Jordan asked me if we'd ever get back together, she said abruptly. Chris's heart stopped. What did you tell him? That some broken things can't be fixed, that sometimes damage runs too deep to repair. She crossed her arms defensively. He's 7. He believes in happy endings, doesn't understand that real life doesn't work that way. Does it not work that way? Chris, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just asking, is it impossible? Is the damage actually irreparable, or is that just what you've convinced yourself because it feels safer? It is safer. You left me pregnant and poor. You destroyed my ability to trust anyone. You took something from me I'll never get back. I know, and I'm sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life being sorry, but Taz, you've built an empire. You've raised an incredible son. You've proven everyone who doubted you completely wrong. You've won. But are you happy? Happiness wasn't the goal. Survival was. Proving I didn't need anyone was the goal. Building something so successful that nobody could ever call me poverty again was the goal. I've achieved all that. And now that you've achieved it all, are you happy? She didn't answer for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I don't know if I remember how to be happy. I'm proud, accomplished, successful, but happy? She shook her head. I'm so tired, Chris. So tired of being strong alone, of making every single decision by myself, of being everything to everyone with no one to be anything for me. You could have that. Partnership. Someone to share the load. With you? She laughed, but it was bitter. The man who abandoned me when I needed him most? That's who you think I should trust with partnership? No, with the man I am now, who's shown up every single week for 6 months, who's put Jordan first even when it's inconvenient, who left his family's company and his comfortable life to prove he meant it. 6 months doesn't erase 5 years. I know, but maybe 6 months is enough to prove that change is possible, that people can be different, that second chances aren't always mistakes. Tasmin's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I'm scared of trusting you, of being wrong again, of letting my guard down only to get destroyed when you inevitably leave. What if I don't leave? Everyone leaves. That's what I learned. That's what you taught me. Then let me teach you something different. Let me show you that some people stay, even when it's hard, even when it would be easier to leave. How? How do you show me that? By staying, every day, through difficult conversations and hard moments and all the complicated, messy reality of actually being together, not the fantasy version, the real version. Tasmin wiped her eyes quickly, rebuilding her walls in real time. I need to go. Jordan's waiting in the car. Taz, don't push this. I can't. Her voice broke. I can't have this conversation right now. She left quickly, practically running down the hallway, but Chris had seen something in her eyes. Not just fear or anger or resistance. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying, impossible hope. 2 weeks later, Tasmin called Chris at 11 p.m. Her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. I need a favor, a big one. You can say no. What do you need? I have to fly to London. Major acquisition deal. Could be 6 weeks of negotiations, and I can't take Jordan out of school for that long. His routine, his friends, his stability. He can stay with me. For 6 weeks, full-time, that's not weekends, that's everything. School runs, homework, meals, soccer practice, doctor appointments if he gets sick. All of it. I can do it. I want to do it. Let me do it. Silence. Chris could practically hear her internal debate. Let's do a trial run first, she said finally. 1 week while I'm in New York for preliminary meetings. If that goes well, we'll talk about London. The trial week went perfectly. Chris handled every school pickup on time, helped with homework every night, learning Jordan's teachers' expectations and methods, made healthy dinners Jordan actually ate, maintained bedtime routines. He texted Tasmin updates throughout each day without her having to ask. Photos of Jordan at soccer practice, videos of them cooking dinner together, Jordan's score on his math test, proof that everything was okay, proof that he could handle this. When Tasmin returned, Jordan ran to her at the airport like he'd been separated for months instead of a week. "Mom, I missed you so much, but Dad was awesome. We made tacos, and I only cried 2 times because I missed you. But Dad said missing people you love is normal, and we video called you and I felt better." Tasmin looked at Chris over Jordan's head. Her expression was complicated. Fear, gratitude, resignation, something else Chris couldn't name. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for taking care of him, for sending updates, for making him feel safe. That's what co-parents do." "Yeah, it is." She took a breath. "Okay, London, 6 weeks. You've got him." That night, Chris got a text from a new number. "This is Tasmin. New number for co-parenting logistics. Jordan can stay with you starting Monday. I'll drop off his school schedule, medical info, and emergency contacts tomorrow. Don't make me regret trusting you with this." Chris replied immediately, "I won't let you down, I promise." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Don't make promises. Just show up. That's all I'm asking." And that was the test, wasn't it? Not grand gestures or perfect moments or romantic declarations, just showing up every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Proving through consistent action that he'd become someone worth trusting, someone worth believing in, someone who stayed. Chapter 8. The mistake that breaks trust. The first 3 weeks of Tasmin being in London went smoothly. Chris fell into the rhythm of full-time single parenting with surprising ease. Early morning alarms to get Jordan fed and ready for school, packing lunches with the right balance of nutrition and foods Jordan would actually eat, afternoon pickups and homework battles over math word problems, soccer practice twice a week, dinner cooked together, bath time, reading before bed, video calls with Tasmin so she could say goodnight. She looked progressively more exhausted as the deal negotiations intensified. Dark circles under her eyes, hair less perfectly styled, makeup minimal, but the acquisition was progressing. Her company was on track to absorb a major competitor, cementing TY Global's position in the top 20 Fortune 100 companies. "How's my baby?" she'd ask every night, voice tight with exhaustion and missing him. "He's great. Got a 92 on his science test, made 3 goals at soccer practice, ate all his vegetables without complaining. We built a rocket today out of recycled materials. Thank you for taking care of him. Stop thanking me. He's my son. This is what fathers do." Week 4 brought the incident that shattered everything. Jordan came home from school with a birthday party invitation, swimming party at the community pool. Permission slip required parental signature and acknowledgement of pool safety rules. Chris signed it without reading carefully, filed it away, bought a birthday present for the kid Jordan barely knew, dropped Jordan off at the party on Saturday afternoon. "Have fun, buddy. I'll pick you up at 4. The party was supervised by the birthday boy's parents, plus 2 other adults Chris recognized from previous school events. He left feeling confident Jordan was in good hands. When he picked Jordan up 3 hours later, his son was buzzing with excitement. "Dad, that was so fun! We played sharks and minnows and I touched the bottom of the deep end. I held my breath for so long." Chris's blood turned to ice. "Jordan, buddy, can you swim?" Sort of. I mean, I took lessons last year, but we only went to like 3 or 4 classes before Mom got too busy with work. But I was with Elijah the whole time. Elijah is 7 years old. How deep was this deep end? Really deep, like 12 feet. But I made it all the way down and touched 12 feet. Jordan could barely swim, and Chris had signed a permission slip allowing him to be in a pool without verifying his swimming ability. His son could have drowned. Chris immediately called Tasmin. It was close to midnight in London, but this couldn't wait. She answered on the first ring, voice alert. "Is Jordan okay? What happened?" "He's fine. He's safe. But Taz, I need to tell you something and you're going to be furious with me." "What happened?" He explained. The birthday party, the permission slip he'd signed without reading carefully, the deep end, his assumption that Jordan could swim well enough, the 12 feet of water his barely swimming son had dove into. The silence on the other end was worse than any screaming could have been. When Tasmin finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet and absolutely glacial. He was in 12 feet of water, when he can barely swim. "I didn't know. I should have asked. I should have verified his swimming ability. I should have read the permission slip more carefully. I just assumed—" "You assumed?" Her voice cracked with barely controlled rage. "Chris, you never assume with child safety. You verify. You double-check. You ask questions. You don't just sign papers without reading them and hope for the best. Taz, I'm so sorry." Sorry doesn't bring back a drowned child. Sorry doesn't fix it if something had happened. She was crying now, her voice breaking. What if he'd panicked? What if he'd inhaled water? What if no one had noticed? What if I got a call 5,000 miles away that our son was dead because you didn't do basic due diligence? Nothing happened. He's okay. This time. What about next time? How do I know you'll pay attention? How do I know you'll keep him safe when I'm not there to manage every single detail? You can't manage every detail. That's not realistic. Then how do I trust you? How do I leave my son with you when you just proved you'll be careless with his life? It was one mistake, one error in judgment. I learned from it. I'll never... One mistake is all it takes. One moment of not paying attention and he could be dead. Her voice was pure anguish now. I trusted you. I left my son with you for 6 weeks, the most precious thing in my entire life, and you almost got him killed. That's not fair. I would never... Life isn't fair. Being a parent isn't fair. You don't get to make mistakes with someone's life. Everyone makes mistakes, Taz, including you. But when you make them, there's nobody there to catch them. So you've convinced yourself you can't make mistakes, but that standard is impossible. I don't make mistakes with Jordan's safety. Really? You've never forgotten to check something? Never missed a detail? Never let something slide because you were tired or overwhelmed? Not with things that could kill him? The pool had 3 adult supervisors plus lifeguards. Jordan was never actually in danger. You don't know that. You weren't there. You didn't verify. Chris took a breath, trying to calm his racing heart. Taz, I fucked up. I absolutely did, and I'm sorry. But if one mistake means you immediately pull back all trust, then we can't co-parent. We can't do this. Because humans make mistakes. Parents make mistakes. And we have to be able to forgive each other and learn instead of treating every error as evidence that the whole relationship should collapse. Silence. Then, very quietly, I can't lose him, Chris. He's everything. If something happened to him because I wasn't there, because I chose to trust you, nothing will happen. I swear to you, I learned from this. I'll verify everything now. Swimming ability, allergies, supervision, all of it. But I need you to give me the chance to learn instead of immediately deciding I'm going to get our son killed. More silence. I need time, Tasmin said finally. I need to finish these negotiations and come home and see my son and figure out if I can actually do this. Do what? Trust someone else with the things that matter most to me. I don't know if I'm capable of it. And this just proved that maybe I was right not to trust anyone. Taz, I have to go. Tell Jordan I love him. Tell him I'll call tomorrow. She hung up. Chris sat with Jordan that night and explained age-appropriately that Mom was upset because of the pool situation. "Is she mad at me?" Jordan's eyes filled with tears. "Nobody, not at all. She's upset with me because I should have made sure you were safe in the pool." "But I was safe. Elijah's dad was watching us and there were lifeguards." "I know. But when you're a parent, even the possibility of your child being in danger is scary. Your mom loves you so much that the thought of anything happening to you makes her really upset." "Are you and Mom going to fight again? Like before?" The fear in Jordan's voice was devastating. "We're having a disagreement, but we're going to work it out, because we both love you and we're both committed to taking care of you. Do you promise?" Chris pulled Jordan into a hug. "I promise I'm not going anywhere. Your mom and I are figuring out how to work together. Sometimes that's hard, but we're both trying." The next 3 weeks were strained. Tasmin called Jordan every night, but the conversations were shorter. She barely spoke to Chris, except for necessary logistics texts. Cold. Professional. The warmth that had been building was gone, like it had never existed. Chris maintained Jordan's routine perfectly, verified every detail of every activity, sent detailed updates to Tasmin whether she acknowledged them or not. When she finally came home from London, she looked like she'd aged 5 years in 6 weeks. The deal had closed successfully. TWI Global was now number 19 on the Fortune 100. The press was calling her a genius visionary. She looked hollow. Jordan ran to her at the airport like he was afraid she might disappear if he didn't hold on tight enough. "Mum, I missed you so much." She held him and cried into his hair, not caring who saw. After Jordan was settled at home, Tasmin asked Chris to come over. They sat on her balcony overlooking the city. "I've been thinking about us," she said without preamble, "about whether this can work. Co-parenting. Maybe something more." Chris's heart hammered. "And? I'm terrified of trusting you. The pool thing proved it. One mistake and I completely spiraled. Convinced myself you'd get Jordan killed. Convinced myself I was an idiot for ever lowering my walls even slightly." "Taz, let me finish." She took a shaky breath. "But then I thought about it more, really examined it, and I realized I make mistakes too. Last year I completely forgot Jordan's dentist appointment. Another time I let him watch screens for 5 straight hours because I had a work crisis. I've made dozens of small parenting mistakes because I'm human and overwhelmed and doing my best. We all make mistakes. I know, but I forgive myself for them because I know my intention is good. I'm trying my best. I love Jordan with everything I am. So my mistakes come from overwhelm, not negligence." "Same for me. That's exactly how it was for me." "I know, and that's what scares me. Because if I hold you to an impossible standard of perfection, I don't have to risk trusting you. I can keep my walls up, stay in complete control, stay safe from ever being hurt again." But Jordan deserves better than having a mother who's too scared to let anyone help. And maybe, she looked at him directly, maybe I deserve better too. Maybe I deserve to not carry everything alone. Chris reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try, really try, not just co-parent successfully, actually build something. See if we can create what we should have had from the beginning." She squeezed his hand. "But it has to be real, not a fantasy, not grand gestures or perfect moments, just 2 flawed people choosing each other every day." "I can do that. I want to do that." "Can you?" "Because it means dealing with my control issues, my trust issues, my tendency to panic when things aren't perfect, my walls that don't come down easily. Can you handle my learning curve, my mistakes, the fact that I'm still figuring out how to be the father and partner I should have been all along?" "I can try." "Then we'll both try. Together." Tasmin leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat in silence, hands clasped, looking at the city lights. "I'm still scared," she whispered. "So am I." "Good." It means this matters. They stayed like that until Jordan called from his room, wanting his mom to tuck him in. Tasmin stood, squeezed Chris's hand one more time. "One day at a time," she said. "One day at a time," he agreed. And for the first time in 6 years, it felt like maybe they could actually do this. Maybe they could actually build something real. Chapter 9. The choice that defines everything. 6 months after the pool incident, Chris and Tasmin were dating, slowly, carefully, taking nothing for granted. They had dinner once a week, just the two of them, after Jordan went to bed, talking about everything except their shared history at first. Books, current events, work stress, Jordan's progress at school, safe topics that let them learn each other again without the weight of the past crushing every conversation. Gradually, the conversations deepened. Tasmin talked about the loneliness of building her empire, the isolation that came from being the one everyone looked to for answers, the exhaustion of being strong every single moment with no breaks allowed. Chris talked about the emptiness of his old life, the performance of success without substance, the realization that he'd been living someone else's script for 30 years. They were learning each other as the people they'd become, not the people they'd been when they'd married young and foolish and convinced love could overcome everything. Jordan was thrilled but confused. He asked questions constantly. "Are you and Mom dating? Like boyfriend-girlfriend?" "Something like that. We're seeing if we work well together." "You already work well together. You're both my parents." "That's co-parenting. This is different. This is about whether Mom and I want to be together as partners, not just as your parents." "Why wouldn't you?" "Because relationships are complicated, buddy. And your mom and I have a complicated history. Mom says complications are just problems that haven't been solved yet." 7 years old and already smarter than most adults, Chris knew. Then came the complication that tested everything. Tasmin's company had an opportunity to acquire a major Japanese technology firm. The deal would make TY Global a top 10 Fortune 100 company. It would cement her legacy as one of the greatest business minds of the generation. It required her to be in Tokyo for 3 months. She told Chris over dinner, her expression careful and guarded. "I know it's a long time. I know we just started, whatever this is. But this deal is massive. It's career-defining. You should go." "What?" "You should absolutely go. This is what you've been building toward. Jordan and I will be fine." 3 months is a really long time. What if what? What if I can't handle it? What if I make another mistake? What if I prove I'm not trustworthy?" Tasmin looked down at her wine glass. "Maybe. Taz, I've been taking care of Jordan for almost a year now. No more incidents. No more careless mistakes. I've proven I can do this. You need to do this deal. Don't sacrifice your career because you're scared to trust me." "I'm not scared of trusting you with Jordan. I'm scared of losing this." She gestured between them. "What if I'm gone for 3 months and you realize you don't actually want this? What if the physical distance makes you see clearly that this was just guilt-driven redemption and not real love?" "That's not going to happen. You can't know that. I can, because I've loved you for 6 years, even when you hated me, even when you wouldn't speak to me, even when I had no hope of ever getting you back. I loved you through your absence. I can love you through 3 months in Tokyo." Tasmin's eyes filled with tears. "What if I come back and you've moved on? Then I'd be an idiot, and you should find someone better." Chris reached across the table, took her hand. "But that's not going to happen. Go to Tokyo, build your empire, become everything you're meant to be. Jordan and I will be here when you get back." She went. The first month was hard. Video calls at awkward hours due to the time difference. Tasmin looking progressively more exhausted as negotiations dragged on. Jordan missing his mother with an intensity that broke Chris's heart. "Is Mom ever coming home?" "Of course she is. She's just working on something really important." "More important than us?" "Not more important." just really important in a different way. Your mom worked really hard to build her company. This deal makes all that work pay off. I just miss her. I know, buddy. I miss her too. Week 6 brought the crisis. Jordan got sick at school. Not emergency room sick, just regular childhood fever and vomiting. But Tasmin wasn't available for the call. She was in a crucial negotiation meeting. Chris left work immediately, picked up Jordan, brought him home, managed the fever, dealt with the vomiting, put on nature documentaries, made soup, did all the unglamorous, exhausting work of caring for a sick child alone. When he finally got Tasmin on the phone 8 hours later, her voice was tight with guilt and panic. "Is he okay? Why didn't you call me? I should have been there. He's fine. Fever broke 2 hours ago. He kept down dinner. He's sleeping now. I should have been there. You were working. I handled it. That's what co-parents do. But, Taz, you can't be everywhere at once. You're in Tokyo closing a $3 billion deal. I'm here taking care of our son when he's sick. This is partnership. This is trust. This is what we're building." She was quiet for a long moment. "I've never had that before." "Had what?" "Someone to share the load. Someone I could actually count on to handle things when I can't. Someone who doesn't resent me for being busy or successful or focused on my career. You deserve that. You've always deserved that. I'm sorry I didn't believe you could be that person. You didn't have any reason to believe it. I had to prove it." Week 10. The deal hit a major complication. Tasmin called Chris at 2 in the morning her time, 3 in the afternoon his time. "I might have to stay another month, maybe 2. The Japanese executives are being difficult about certain terms, and if I leave now, the whole thing could collapse, and I can't let 5 months of work fall apart, but I also can't keep being away from Jordan this long, and I don't know what to do. Stay. Finish the deal. Jordan understands. He's okay. He's not okay. He cries for me at night. Don't think I don't know. Don't think I can't hear it in his voice when we video call. He misses you. That's normal. But he knows you're coming back. He knows you're working on something important. He's proud of you." "How do you know?" "Because he told his entire class that his mom is going to own the biggest technology company in the world. He brought in articles about you for show and tell. He brags about you constantly." Tasmin's voice broke. "I'm a terrible mother. I'm choosing work over my son." "You're not choosing. You're doing both. Imperfectly. Like every parent does. You're teaching Jordan that women can be brilliant business leaders and loving mothers. That success and family aren't mutually exclusive. That his mom is strong enough to build empires and soft enough to read him bedtime stories over video calls at 3 in the morning Tokyo time." "I'm so tired, Chris. So tired of being everything to everyone." "I know. But you're not everything to everyone anymore. You're sharing the load with me. You're letting me be Jordan's primary parent for a few months so you can be the CEO you worked so hard to become. That's not failure. That's partnership." She finished the deal, came home after 3.5 months. Jordan met her at the airport with a poster that said, "Mom is the best CEO in the world," decorated with hand-drawn spaceships. She held him and cried so hard she couldn't breathe. That night, after Jordan was asleep, Tasmin and Chris sat on her balcony. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Let someone actually be here, actually share my life. I've been alone for so long, building walls so high, convincing myself I didn't need anyone, and now you're here, actually here, consistently, and I don't know how to let you in completely." "You don't have to know. We'll figure it out together." "What if I'm too damaged? What if I can't ever fully trust you? Then we work on it, every day, little by little, until one day you wake up and realize you do trust me, or maybe you never fully do, and we figure out how to build something anyway." Tasmin looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in months. "I love you," she said. "I'm terrified to say it. Scared you'll take it for granted, or that it makes me weak, or that I'll regret it. But I do. I love you. Chris pulled her close. I love you too. And it doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. I'm still scared. Me too. But we're doing this anyway. Yeah, we are. They sat together in the darkness, holding each other, and understood they were building something different than before. Not the naive love of two young people who thought romance could overcome everything, but the mature love of two people who'd been broken and rebuilt and chose each other anyway, with full knowledge of each other's flaws and failures and capacity to hurt each other. Choosing love anyway. Chapter 10. The family they choose. 1 year later. Jordan's 8th birthday party filled the planetarium with chaos and joy. 60 kids running between exhibits, parents making small talk, Jordan at the center explaining orbital mechanics to anyone who'd listen. Chris and Tasmin stood together watching their son be brilliantly himself. Her hand found his naturally. No hesitation. Comfortable touch between two people who'd earned it. We did good, Tasmin said softly. You did good. I just showed up eventually. You've been showing up for 2 years. That counts. She squeezed his hand. He's happy. That's what matters. A mother approached with a warm smile. You must be Jordan's parents. He's wonderful. Thank you, they said together. How long have you been married? Tasmin handled it smoothly. We're together, figuring out the rest as we go. The woman laughed. Aren't we all? Jordan clearly feels very loved. After she left, Chris turned to Tasmin. Does it bother you that people assume we're married? No. Does it bother you that we're not? Also no. We don't need paper to prove commitment. But nothing. I'm happy with what we're building. Later, after cake and Jordan's chocolate-covered face, they helped carry gifts to the car. He chattered about presents, exhibits, whether they could rent the planetarium again next year. At home, after Jordan crashed in bed surrounded by new spacebooks, Chris and Tasmin sat with wine. I've been thinking, Tasmin said. Dangerous words. She smiled. About us, what we're building. And I want you to move in, officially. Not just your stuff here. I want this to be our home. Yours, mine, Jordan's, together. You're sure? I'm terrified, which means I should do it. She looked at him. I've spent so long protecting myself, building walls, but I'm tired of being alone. You've proven you're not going anywhere. You've shown up for 2 years, time I let you all the way in. What changed? Tokyo. Coming home and realizing you'd held everything together. Jordan was happy and safe. You didn't resent me for working. You just handled it, like a real partner. Her voice softened. So yes, move in. Let's build this for real. One condition. What? Your career doesn't change. You keep building your empire. I'll fit into your life, not the other way around. Tears filled her eyes. You mean that? Completely. I love who you are. Not some version who works less or needs me more. I love the woman who runs a Fortune 100 company and still reads to our son every night. I love you too, so much it scares me. Good, should be scary, means it matters. They kissed, soft and deep and full of promise. 3 months later, Chris officially moved in. Jordan helped unpack, designating closets, ensuring Chris's telescope got the best window position. Now we're like a real family, Jordan announced. We were always a real family, Tasmin corrected, but now we share one home. Can I tell people at school Chris is my stepdad? Chris and Tasmin exchanged glances. I'm just dad, Chris said. Stepdad is for when someone marries a parent who isn't their biological parent. I'm your actual dad. Yeah, that's good. Jordan went back to books. Elijah's parents got remarried, had a big party. Are you guys going to get married? Another glance. Maybe someday, Tasmin said carefully. I want it, Jordan said matter-of-factly. You love each other, you live together. You're both my parents. That's what married people do. That night, after Jordan slept, Tasmin brought it up. Do you want to get married? Do you? I asked first. Chris considered. I want whatever makes you feel secure. The label doesn't matter to me. The reality of us does. What if I said I want to, but I'm terrified? Then we'd talk about what terrifies you. Tasmin pulled her knees up. I'm scared marriage gives you legal claims to things I built. That if it goes wrong, you could take half. Prenup, ironclad. You keep everything. Your company, your assets, all of it. I don't want your money. Then why marry me? Because you want security of legal commitment. Because Jordan wants to see his parents married. Because after everything, choosing each other publicly feels meaningful. He moved closer. But only if you want it, she thought. Ask me in 6 months. If we're still this happy, ask then. Okay. 6 months later, hiking in the mountains. Beautiful fall day, leaves changing, air perfect. Jordan ran ahead on the trail. At the summit overlook, city below them, Chris turned to Tasmin. It's been 6 months. She smiled. I know. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Do you have a ring? No, didn't want to presume. Wanted to ask first. Very diplomatic. So? Tasmin looked at the city, the empire she'd built, then at Jordan, then at Chris. Yes, I'll marry you. Jordan screamed and ran over. Really? You're getting married? You were listening, Tasmin accused with a laugh. Obviously, this is important. He hugged them both. Can I be the best man? You can be whatever you want, Chris said. They married 6 months later. Small ceremony, close friends and family. Jordan walked his mother down the aisle because she doesn't need to be given away. She's not property. The vows were honest. No promises of perfection, just promises to keep choosing each other. I promise to stay, Chris said, voice thick, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to trust you, Tasmin said, tears streaming. To let you in, to believe needing someone doesn't make me weak. I promise to keep building while making space for you. Jordan gave a speech he'd written. My parents got divorced before I was born. I didn't have a dad for a long time, just my mum, who's the strongest, smartest person in the world. Then my dad came back and kept showing up and proved he was serious. Now they're married and our family is complete. Not because families need to be a certain way, but because my parents chose each other and chose me. That's what makes a family. Choosing each other. Every day. Standing ovation. Later, slow dancing, Chris whispered. We actually did it. Did what? Built something real. Something that almost didn't survive but did. We did, and we'll keep doing it, one day at a time. Years passed. Jordan became an aerospace engineer, then astrophysicist. Everything his brilliant mind was capable of. Tasmin's company grew. TY Global eventually became 5th-ranked Fortune 100. She was named one of the most influential business leaders of the century. Chris built his own consulting firm focused on ethical leadership, not as flashy as Tasmin's empire, but meaningful work he cared about. They weren't perfect, still fought sometimes. Tasmin still struggled with walls, Chris still carried guilt. But they showed up every day, even when hard, especially when hard. On their 10th anniversary, they returned to the mountain overlook where Chris proposed. Do you regret it? Chris asked. Giving me a second chance? Tasmin looked at him like he was insane. Are you serious? Just checking. Chris, you gave me Jordan. Then came back and proved people can change, that second chances aren't always mistakes. You've been my partner in every way. Why would I regret that? Because I wasted 5 years. Because I hurt you. Because you were human and made terrible choices, then spent years making better ones. Yes, you hurt me. But you also showed me growth is possible. That love isn't just falling into it, but choosing it every day. She took his hand. I built an empire to prove I didn't need anyone. But the truth, having an empire is meaningless if you have no one to share it with. You and Jordan, you're what makes it matter, not money or success. This, us, the family we built from broken pieces. Chris pulled her close. I love you, more every day. I love you too, despite your terrible past judgment. They laughed, kissed, held each other as the sun set. Where Tasmin had built her empire from nothing, where Chris had rebuilt himself from ruins of his cowardice, where they'd both learned that second chances, when earned and deserved and fought for, could become something even more beautiful than first chances. Because first chances were given freely, second chances were earned. And that made all the difference. The end.